The UK 70-mile-an-hour speed limit was set way back in 1960. Is there sufficient reason to increase the speed limit? A lot of drivers are campaigning for an 80-mile-an-hour limit. In fact, watching cars on the motorway making progress, a lot of them are already doing somewhere between 70 and 80 miles an hour. And if you look at the stats from speed cameras, many drivers are caught in the upper regions approaching 80 miles an hour. What are the pros and cons of increasing the speed limit on our motorways and our roads? I'm going to try and make this unbiased. It's not just going to be a pro driver who hates speed limits lobby video. We're going to dissect the issue. Now, the speed limit was set back in 1960. The land speed record back then in 1960 was 394 miles an hour, and it currently stands at over 700 miles an hour. So the maximum speed of the fastest car has doubled. Also, brake technology and safety technology has ballooned to make driving substantially safer than it was in the 1960s. We typically had drum brakes on cars back then, and now we have high-tech disc brakes. The wheel sizes, the tyre technology and the ABS braking systems have all gone a long way to shorten the stopping distances. Now, conversely, cars are much heavier. They need this extra equipment in order to stop safely. But overall, we do see an improvement in the stopping distance of modern cars to cars back in the 1960s. What about drivers though? Are drivers more readily able to react to problems ahead? Well, that hasn't changed. We're still human. You could argue that the modern TikTok generation have even lower reflexes and think less about driving and the road ahead than maybe drivers did when they first passed their test back in the 1960s, where there were a lot more things drilled into them and the driver's skills was very much down to the driver. They weren't reliant on technology. But also, technology has enhanced the safety of cars. We've got all sorts of assistance systems that monitor the distance from the car in front, will auto brake if they detect that you are too close or just about to come up to a collision. There's also swerve assist and various other things that are all tied into radar systems on modern cars that go a long way to making cars much safer. But one thing we can't escape from is that having an accident at 80 miles an hour will do a lot more damage than at 70 miles an hour. The laws of physics and kinetic energy come into play. Now, looking at accident statistics, you will also see an increase in fatalities if the speed limit is increased, despite all of the extra modern safety systems which have gone some way to reducing the risk of having extra fatalities and extra injuries on our roads. They haven't eliminated it and they don't substantially reduce the problem. I guess that when we're all driving completely autonomous vehicles, that'll be a different story and we'll never have another accident again. I'll let you debate that one in the comments. One of the big breaks on increasing the speed limit to 80 miles an hour is the environmental lobbyists. Cars going faster produce more pollution. Now, some of us might say that cars going slower produce more pollution, and indeed, below 30 miles an hour, a car produces more pollution. But that graph will dip down below at 50 miles an hour and then start increasing again as we hit 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And at that point, the engine is emitting a lot more nitrous oxides, carbon dioxide, and all the other emissions that are going on in that car engine. Conversely, though, we could argue that the shorter journey time means that that pollution is emitted for shorter periods of time. I haven't done the calculations on that. It's a very, very complex scenario. If you are aware of a study that has actually looked at that specific aspect of pollution, please let me know. I'll be really interested in reading it. But I couldn't meaningfully get my head around that argument that duration and emissions makes a significant difference. We also have to throw into this argument now that more EVs are on our road. More cars are producing zero emissions at the tailpipe. If that's the case, then the environmental lobbyists that didn't want an increase to the speed limit to 80 miles an hour have no longer got a case, because a big majority of cars on the roads at some point will be electric and will not be emitting pollution. The other argument as well is that if drivers know the limit is 80, they will try and drive at 90 miles an hour. They feel there is a bit of a buffer. They feel entitled to go over the posted speed limit, that their abilities put them in a unique bracket above every other motorist on the road, and that they have lightning quick reflexes and can react whatever happens. The reality, though, is somewhat different. A moment's inattention on even the most skilled and careful driver with perfect reflexes will result in an accident. That is what a moment's inattention does. And the faster we're going, the bigger the distance we cover with that moment of inattention. We could perhaps ask for an 80-mile-an-hour limit, but insist that enforcement is much tighter, that there's a zero tolerance to going over 80 miles an hour. And that will legitimise a lot of drivers that are currently driving somewhere between 70 and 80 miles an hour. Let me know what your typical cruising speed is if you feel brave enough to make a public statement. Will 80-mile-an-hour limits on our roads reduce congestion and traffic jams? It's not really the upper end speed that is causing the congestion. It's generally the bottlenecks, the roadworks, the slow moving cars. And as they slow up, they create a jam behind them. Whatever the speed limit is posted to be, drivers will not be able to reach that. And it will make no difference whatsoever to congestion generally. We would be talking about a reduction in overall journey time, where we've got access to a nice clear road. And Germany's autobahns are a great example of having unrestricted sections of road. Now, rather than post an 80-mile-an-hour limit on all roads, we could do what other countries have done, and just on safe, straight stretches of motorway, where the weather conditions are favourable, we could increase the limit to 80. We already see variable speed limit on many of our motorways. These so-called smart motorways adjust the speed limit to keep the traffic moving. And why can't they adjust the speed limit upwards, increasing it maybe to 80 miles an hour when the road is clear and safe to do so? Now, there are graphs that we can look at that show that the number of accidents and fatalities will increase exponentially with speed. And that's just a byproduct of travelling around. Whatever we were on, there is going to be a risk from it. When we were on a horse and cart, there were still risks of injuries and fatalities from that method of transport. On bicycles, there is still a risk. And it's all about weighing up the risk. A lot of areas have introduced 20-mile-an-hour limits to reduce fatalities and injuries. And you could argue, and the 30-mile-an-hour limit was originally chosen as a good compromise between safety and allowing our cars to get around the local towns and villages. Let me know what you think about the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Some people might argue that any death on the road is bad, is wrong, and you've certainly got to take that moral stand looking at that fact. But if we made our cars crawl at 5 miles an hour, that would eliminate the risk of injuries and accidents on our roads. But think about the cost, the environmental cost, the extra pollution of our cars moving so slowly. If our ambulances were stuck in traffic and unable to save people's lives, if organ deliveries were unable to be made at a speed faster than that, and generally the whole economy would collapse if the speed limit was set so arbitrarily low. An overall speed limit has to be set that is pragmatic, that weighs the pros and the cons. We can't save every single life because there's going to be a cost. Other lives are going to be lost by restricting the speed. Let me know what you think of that argument as well in the comments, and whether you can expand on that, or you've got some other examples to throw into that argument and that debate. Most of all though, please just let me know what you think about the current speed limit. Would you be happy if speeds were increased to 80? Would you like to see that only applied during good weather or on specific sections of road, or just raising the national speed limit arbitrarily to 80 miles an hour? I think it's an interesting debate, which is why I've made this video. I've tried to present all of the arguments for and the arguments against. There is quite a complex set of issues attached to this notion of increasing the speed limit to 80 miles an hour. Let me know what you think. If you've enjoyed this video, please boot that like button. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, which a lot of you haven't, please do so, because that does help us to get out there. And I've lined up this video and this playlist that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.